Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. So as always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. Thank you very much to everyone that jumped on the live watch along I done last night for the Subriel Matias, Parro, and the David Benavidez, Alexander Vosdick fights, and I guess by proxy a little bit of the Tank Davis and Frank Martin fights. It was a bit last minute when I decided to do it. I decided on Friday, obviously did basis picks. Then whoever knows what happened Friday night happened, and then it almost wasn't gonna take place, but I did say I'd do it, and I kind of just wanted to have a little bit of an escape. But what I will say is it was difficult doing, primarily just because I was extremely tired. Friday and Saturday were very long, very emotionally drawn out days for me. So yeah, but no, thank you very much for those who were up and who were rocking with me and engaging in the chat. Philip Answer, shout out to you each and every time. Jam Down 187, who I met at actually at Selhurst Park yesterday. So shout out to you, big ups. Alexander the Great, Alexander, he was there. Alexander Sankey was in the building. Karma Serene, I know, jumped in towards the end. Boxing Wave, shout out to you. And yes, we do need to do some work in the future, so appreciate it. And in terms of like Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and X, Twitter X, like I've seen the messages and everything. I'll get back to everyone. I will do at some point. But thank you everyone who's obviously been sending their messages and well wishes and stuff over the last couple of days. It is appreciated. But yeah, look, let's get into this weekend. There was actually some fights that took place a little earlier in the week, which I haven't had a chance to look at yet. But I know Kevin Lily Sajo fought on Thursday. I need to check out that fight. I always like watching his fights, highly entertaining. I don't even know the result yet, and I'm gonna continue to not know the result until I watch the fight, because I want to just go into it cold. But let's talk about the weekend. I'm gonna try and keep it as brief as I can on sort of the Selhurst Park stuff. Look, I will not play, hindsight quarterback on this one. Coming into the event, I thought that the event was very I thought it was a good card. I thought there was a lot of competitive fights on there. The one fight which I felt was the most foregone conclusion out of all of them was going to be Ben Whittaker against Whittaker. But outside of that, when initially Caroline Dubois was supposed to be on the card as well, I just thought, look, there's just going to be a lot of fun fights here. Dan Aziz coming back, Francesca Hennessy against Dorata Norek in a fourth fight. And if I'm totally honest, while I never paid 100% attention to every single fight, I watched enough of all of them to say that I think that Francesca Hennessy's fight was my favourite fight of the night. And I don't want to say that like I'm about to disrespect Francesca Hennessy in any way, shape or form, because that's as far from the truth as possible. Like, I've actually really grown kind of fond of her over the last couple fights, and the last couple times talking to her and actually, getting to know her on a more personal level. But for a 4-fight novice, I shouldn't be looking at your fight and saying that was my most entertaining or my most fun experience in a card that's supposed to be as stacked as that one was. Then Dan Aziz got the draw against Whittaker Sepp. I mean, to be honest, when I was kind of watching, I watched some of those rounds like from ringside, then I kind of went back to the media area, but I saw a lot of what I thought was good body work coming from Dan Aziz, and I don't know if it was being counted, because I saw the viewer scorecards and a lot of them were saying that they had Sepp 3-1 up after 4 rounds. And obviously it was an 8-rounder, so that's that. Then Dan supposedly came back rounds 5, 6, and then maybe Sepp got another one, and then Dan came back again. But ultimately, the referee, who was the only ones judging it, scored it a draw, I think 76-76. That's not a particularly good look for Dan. I'm going to just keep it real. He's supposed to be above that level. He's shown himself to be at worst, an upper European level fighter. And, Sepa is a guy with like 11 losses, I think, before this event. Now, don't get me wrong, he was a very good amateur and he was good like back in the day, but as a comeback fight, that's just supposed to be a knock the rust off, take him down the stretch, get a stoppage in rounds 5, 6 or 7 and call it a night. But there was a lot of strange performances. I do believe, and I don't have this as an excuse, but I do believe the weather and the conditions played a factor in a lot of those fights, because we're in the middle of June and there's still people wearing puffer jackets and not sweating. It's the weather's crazy. Like, it was pissing down with rain on numerous occasions yesterday. Luckily, I managed to miss all of the big downfalls, but yeah, it's just I don't get it. Isaac Chamberlain, Jack Massey, I got that one wrong. I said Isaac Chamberlain would get a points decision on that one. I felt he would start well, a lot of movement, sort of be able to tie Massey, who didn't have that much of a notice, I guess, for the fight itself. But Jack Massey showed why he felt so hard done by the Richard Riakporhe fight he had about 4 years ago. I don't know what Isaac does next. I mean, it's not the end for him. He's still got some good fights in him, some good mileage in him, but he went for that European and he didn't achieve it. So is it now back down to British level to try and regain the British title? Does he try and get a rematch? Does he try to do a couple rebuild fights and then go back for the European? But it's a setback, and it's probably a setback that's happening at the worst time for him. But shout out to Jack Massey. And from what I saw in the media centre, only two fighters actually came out to do media. Francesca Hennessy was one and Jack Massey was the other. Obviously, I respect him for that. He did his medicals, had his shower, came out and spoke to everyone. I wasn't really in the at that point in time, I wasn't in the mood to do and conduct any further interviews. I was waiting for Dan Aziz. I was waiting for Isaac Chamberlain. At one point, I thought Ben Whittaker would come out, which obviously we'll talk about in a moment. But I think he did some maybe in the changing rooms, but I didn't go back there. I didn't even check to see if I had access, to be honest. But Jack Massey, congrats to him. Ben Whittaker against Ezra Araneka. Like, look, the ring walks, brilliant. Like, really good fun. Ben was at a canter for the majority of the fight. But something has happened to the power. Not massively, like, I'm not saying that he's become feather fisted all of a sudden. He's still got power there, but since not being with Sugar Hill, it's almost like he's not stepping into his shots the way he used to, or he's not sitting down on them the way he used to. He's not like he was, wobbling people, rocking people, dropping them, and yeah, he still might be hurting people in these exchanges, but there's just no, like, he's just not being effective as he was. And obviously him going up the levels, you can outbox people for 10, 12 rounds, make them look silly. But when you get to sort of those people that are going to just like sit on your chest ultimately, and if you don't have that power to stop them from being confident to walk through your shots, to try and get on the chest and to just make you work and everything, it's going to be an issue. Now, I don't know, I did my predictions before seeing the actual weigh-in, and I know that he came in 5 ounces over on the scales. Now, that I don't take too much into that, but he has been fighting quite often recently, and I don't know if maybe he's a little bit maybe he's a little bit tight at the weight at the minute, or maybe this was one of the harder weight cuts that he had, and maybe that had a little bit of effect, so he kind of just went into round management mode. But yeah, look, it was a comfortable performance. I just thought I would see more. And the thing is, when obviously his thing before that was I don't want these people thinking they can just run up in a press conference and get a fight. And he said, I'm gonna show the levels, and I'm gonna make an example out of him. Unfortunately, he didn't make the example. So if that was his mindset going into that fight, I think more people are gonna try and build their name off of him again now, because they might think, okay, well, even if he beats me up, like, I'm not gonna, he's not gonna make me a meme like he did to some of his other opponents. And they might be more willing to sort of come and do that, and it might even stifle his career in terms of the steps and the levels that he wants to go. But that's my opinion on the situation. My stock is still very high in Ben, but I just feel like last night maybe was a misstep or a miscalculation in that, if that was the game plan. But I would have liked to have seen him after the fight to actually have that conversation and speak to him sort of about how sort of things played out. But yeah, then, I mean, look, we get to the main event, and again, this is another fight where on paper, like, the first one wasn't the most entertaining fight, but it was dramatic. It had a lot of drama, and there was a lot of, like, tight and edgy moments in it. I'm going to be honest, this fight was awful. Now, partially, I remember I heard someone say, I can't remember who it was, but they said that Chris Smith is never in a boring fight. And funny enough, when I actually look back at a lot of his fights, the Tommy McCarthy fights, the Lawrence Okoli fights, the first Riakporhe fight, the second one, the Masterneck fight, not as much, but I look at all these fights and he's actually not, he's very effective in what he does, and obviously he's worked hard and he grinds opponents down, and he sort of, he gets the job done. So I credit him for that, but he's actually not that fan friendly to watch. He jumps to the inside. He smothers a lot, and he actually holds a lot more than people think. I know in the Okoli fight, Okoli got 2 points off for holding, but Chris Smith did initiate quite a few of those clinches. He initiated a few clinches in the Masterneck fight. He initiated clinches, a lot of clinches in the McCarthy fights, in the first Riakporhe fight. Yeah, they're both holding, but he's very smart at being able to make it seem as if it's the other guy that's holding him, when he jumps into the inside and grabs one arm and sort of wraps it around, and then waves the other arm free, like, ref, it's not me, and then maybe digs a couple of shots when the ref maybe moves to the other side. He's very clever at that. So I don't discredit his abilities and what he's doing, because it's clearly effective, but I've just realized he's actually not that fun to watch. And unless he's in the ring now with, like, maybe a Opataya or a Zerdo Ramirez, I don't know if I actually want to watch another one of his fights live, because they're just not fun. They're not fun experiences. And again, I'm not trying to say that as a negative towards him, because he's still getting in there and grafting, but it's like the most entertainment you see is when he gets hit. And I don't want to see that, because I really think CBS has come on leaps and bounds, and he's like an inspiration to a lot of people. So I respect him highly in that sense. But yeah, I've just noticed now, I've never really watched any of his fights and been on the edge of my seat or really sort of been enthralled and oh yeah, I need to see that again. I just don't. So, and on the other side of it, Richard Riakporhe was piss poor last night. Like, I don't know what the game plan was. I don't know if he had issues with the weight. Again, I don't know if the weather was a problem, and he couldn't get going. I don't know if it's a mentality thing, but like, there was no snap to any of his shots. There was, every time he was throwing anything, he would only throw overhand rights as his method of delivery. There was no straight shots, almost no body work. He seemed ponderous at times. He was getting pushed about the ring at times as well, when he's the bigger guy with the longer range. He was falling into the clinches as well. It's like, but you're the taller guy. Why are you collapsing the pocket? You don't need to do that. A lot of it was just, I don't know. And I don't even want to dwell on it, to be honest. As I said, beforehand, I thought the event was going to be a spectacle. I thought it was going to be a great night, a great event. The weather started the downturn in fortunes, because it was a horrible day, and then that horrible day just translated into horrible, nasty work in the ring by almost everyone that boxed. And yeah, it's an event I want to forget, to be honest. I will be real. Arguably, and I'm saying this, without really processing and thinking of all the events I've done media for, or that I've actually bought tickets to go to, it might have actually been the worst one I've been to. And again, that's not because the matches weren't good on paper, but just the execution, just being there, that like the atmosphere. They tried to get it going. Like, I'll rate the fans in the crowd. Like, they was doing their football chants for Palace and everything, and they was trying to create an atmosphere. But just the whole event itself, I don't think I've ever been that bored at an event before, and that's a really, really bad look. So yeah, I hope I don't experience something like that again. But yeah, so then I got home after that, and I set up, obviously was setting up the stream to do the watch alongs. I just kind of got through the Matias Paro fight card as a whole just a few moments ago. Stephanie Pinheiro, I thought she had a good performance against Tapia, and she'd only ever done 6 rounders before. This was her first 10 rounder, and managed the gas tank well. She's got some power behind those shots. Tapia's got a great chin, and Stephanie, there was moments where she was looking tired in the middle rounds. She got her second win towards the end, and I guess in those last couple of rounds where she knew that, okay, the fight's almost over, she was letting her hands go, she was having some effects. She's got to watch how, like, when she goes in for a jab, getting sort of the head, sometimes she leaves her head unguarded, which is obviously muscle memory, something she's got to kind of just work on. But yeah, other than that, Yankiel Rivera, again, competent performance, but he got rocked or wobbled a little bit again. Even though he's got the amateur background, I can see a disaster happening with him pretty soon. Especially when he gets to sort of those, the top guys. I think he's fighting at flyweight. So when he really sort of, hits that top level, I can see it being an issue. Because he's getting hurt in the mid to late rounds in these last 3 fights after cruising. So that might be a mentality thing, it might be a focus or concentration thing, but yeah, sort it out. Subriel Matias and Liam Parro, it's another one I got wrong, but I think the majority of people did. I don't class it as an upset though, and shout out to Smallsy, who did leave a message on the Basis Picks. He said if Parro wins this fight, don't call it an upset because it's a genuine 50-50, and I did believe that. I said, and the fight played out in the first half exactly as I predicted. I said I expect Parro to be winning the first half of this quite dominantly. Good movement, he's got good power to be able to sort of keep Matias like moving, keep him turning. But once I feel that Matias towards the second half will start getting into range, sort of working away, and with Parro having to have exerted a lot of effort and energy in the first half, he might have to start holding on. The fight played out that way, but the difference is Matias just never really got going and let his hands go enough to really sort of sap the energy of Parro in those times when he was desperately tired and holding on. But what Parro did was a very masterful thing where he basically tried to take the crowd out of it, and he would go in, he would jump in, lunge into an exchange, catch Matias with maybe 1 or 2 punches, and then literally just clinch him to stop him from being able to work back. So even though the ref will be like, okay, break it up, stop that, but it's like the last thing the judges are seeing is you hit him, he didn't get a chance to respond. And he did that in several rounds at several moments, which basically just nicked him a bunch of rounds. I think I had it scored. I think I had it 115, 112 to him, where obviously the point deduction that he had taken off. But yeah, look, it deserved winner. It would be interesting to see who he decides to go for next. I'm pretty sure that at this point, with the IBF belt, I've got a feeling that Richardson Hitchens will be more competent or more willing to want to take the fight against Paro than he did against Matias. I think obviously Devin Haney will be a lot more keen to try and do a unification if he gets through the Sandor Martin fight. Jack Catterall, I think now is a lot closer to a world title shot, but I think that Eddie Hearn wants him to go that WBO route to get another belt into the 140 stable. But I think whoever Liam Paro does face, Eddie Hearn is going to do his utmost to make sure that they're only Matchroom signed fighters. And yeah, I think that's how that's going to ultimately play out and work. But actually, I think Liam Parro now will have a mandatory called upon him. I'm not sure who the mandatory is for the IBF. Oh, it's Richardson Hitchens. Yeah. So it's whether or not Hitchison takes that fight next, but he probably will. Again, Parro is probably an easier fight for him to deal with stylistically than Matias would have been. But yeah, big congrats to Liam Parro. Amazing performance. Away from home, road warrior. Did the job. Australia's got another one. If he can keep himself injury free, then yeah, it could be a good run for him. And yeah, moving over to the PBC card now. I've only watched the Vosdik and Benavidez fight in its entirety. I've seen bits and pieces of the Tank and Martin fight, but obviously I watched the 8th round because on the watch along they was telling me, they let me know that it happened in the 8th round, so I literally just skipped to that, watched that, and then cut off the stream. I saw the very end of the Puello and Antoine Russell fight, and again, that's another one I got wrong. I expected Gary Antoine Russell to deal with Alberto Puello, especially him being out as long as he had been, not really being that big of a puncher. I thought that Antoine Russell will get that done, but he showed me up to be another, I'm not even going to say another PBC hype job, but another guy that was clearly in that PBC protection bubble, because Puello is not, if you're of any decent standing, and I'm not saying this to say that Puello's but he's not, he's a good level operator, but if you are the next guy up, as they claim, like, you should be winning that fight and winning it quite convincingly, and he didn't. Now, in terms of Benavidez and Vosdik, controversial to some people, but I know I actually watched part of Ring IQ's watch along when I finished mine. I watched it this morning, and I had it very similar to him. He didn't, well, he stopped scoring the fight after a certain point, but he said that he had Vosdik winning that fight. But if Vosdik didn't knock him out or didn't have multiple knockdowns, he was always going to get jobbed on the scorecards. And that's exactly how it looked, because after 8 rounds, when they did Joe Gooson's scorecard, he had David Benavidez 80-72 up after 10 rounds, which is insane, because like, even if you think that Benavidez won the majority, the people in my chat who were actually giving the fight to Benavidez had it 5-3 at that point to Benavidez. At that point, I actually had it 3-5 the other way. I had it even after 6 rounds, and then I had and then I pretty much gave everything else apart from the 10th round to Vosdik. David Benavidez was flagging. He was tired after sort of round 5, round 6. He did a lot of, like, he had a lot of moments of like shoe shines, and he did some good body work, like, especially early on. But Vosdik, every time that Benavidez hit Vosdik, there wasn't one time where he looked panicked or looked uncomfortable or really looked like it hurt. And it takes me back to an interview he done where he said that, you know, he sparred with David Benavidez and he's not really that hard of a puncher. He's just accurate. So he kind of hits you and you don't really feel it, but then like he just keeps managing to hit you in the same place over and over again. And eventually it kind of just tires you out. Well, that's what it looked like in there, because he was throwing some mad looping left hooks at times. Like, some of these caught Vosdik, don't get me wrong, like, he got caught with shots, but he didn't react. He hardly reacted to almost anything. Whether it was a poker face or he genuinely wasn't bothered, that's what it looked like. But every time that he would pitter-patter onto Benavidez, his entire body is moving. Like his head is getting snapped back, his frame, his construct, some of it's a balance issue, but he's getting moved by shots that and Gvozdyk isn't even landing his hardest shots. He's snapping the jab, but he's not really drilling anything behind it. And I'm a little bit disappointed at him in those later rounds where you can see David Benavidez is breathing out of his mouth. He's laboring. His arms is straight. His arms is down. And Gvozdyk is still He's working diligently, but he's just working almost like, I like you, I respect you, so I don't want to really sort of hurt you in here. So I'm gonna maybe pull a bit back on these punches. I'm trying to get through. If I can get a clean shot to maybe take you out like that, I will do. But I don't want to just inflict punishment. And that's kind of how it looked to me. And yeah, like but I said I've got Gvozdyk winning this fight, but I know that David Benavidez is going to have these scorecards. So I said, if I see 116, 112, like 115, 113 for Benavidez, that's fair because there's a couple rounds I gave to Gvozdyk. Benavidez had good moments in those rounds, but Gvozdyk just did more, and his more to me was more effective. But if you gave those couple the other way, I didn't really have any issue. Then the scorecards came out. I heard 116, 112. I said, all right, cool. That's fine. Either way, I could see that either side. But it said unanimous. And then it said 117, 111. I was like, well, nobody won that fight in that frame. David didn't and Gvozdyk didn't. Then I heard 119, 109. Immediately, I knew that they was giving the fight to David Benavidez. But when I heard that scorecard, I said, all right. So basically, you came for the payday. If you weren't going to commit to actually knocking him out, you already knew that you weren't going to win this fight because that scorecard was pre-written before the fight took place. There's no way that anyone looks at that fight. Even the people that gave, for instance, Danny Glover, shout out to Danny, he scored it 117, 111 to Benavidez. He said he wants to go back, watch it again, maybe with the sound to see if he's looked at it a bit differently the next time. But even him was like, and he's a David Benavidez stan. He really enjoys watching David. He's one of his go-to people. Even he couldn't find or say that Benavidez won 11 rounds in that fight. He's like, yeah, no, he clearly lost a minimum of 3 rounds, and that's as a minimum. So I don't know what that judge was looking at, and that's one of those scorecards that would have to me would have to be investigated because that's shocking behavior. But yeah, there's that. Tank, again, I didn't watch the whole fight, but from what I see, like obviously Frank Martin maybe did some good work early on, but got tired in the middle to late rounds, which is something that Tank does sometimes. He'll let you punch, he'll let you punch him, he'll let you sort of work away. And I think he even said it in the post-fight interview. Yeah, I knew that he didn't really have the gas tank to go level, so I kind of let him work a bit so that he'd get tired, and then I sort of came on stronger towards the end. Now that tactic only works until it doesn't. There's gonna come, it's a bit like the Deontay Wilder thing where he would just wait, and then he lands that right hand and then knocks out these opponents. But when you get to the point when that's no longer possible, okay, well now you're in problems because you're 4, 5, 6 rounds down on the cards and no way to get that deficit back, and the knockout ain't happening. So he's dining out on opponents that he is heavily overmatched to beat. And yes, I've always said, look, he's got talent, the skills are there, but I don't want to hear people tell me about the eye test, because the eye test and the resume ain't stacking up to each other. Yes, he's an attraction, good knockouts, highlight reel knockouts, I get it. But until you're fighting the genuine top 5 guys in your division, not bringing people up from 130 to 135 or 126 up to 130 or 135, or draining people down from 140 with rehydration clauses. Until you're in there with the top guys, the Shakur Stevensons, the Vasil Lomachenko's, now Denis Berinchek, if Emmanuel Navarrete decides to stay at 135, which I don't think he will, but I'll even accept you fighting him because there's a pedigree there, and he's up at that weight now, campaigning like solidly. William Zepeda at 135 as well. Sort of these guys. if you're in there with these guys doing that, all right, cool. Now I can rate you the way that other people are rating you, but I just can't give you those same level of plaudits as they're doing. I won't. Like, I'm a stand on principle until you're in there with people that I want to see you in there with to really gauge what your level is. Then yeah, I'm not saying like I'm done with watching Gervonta Davis, because provided that it's a reasonable price or it's free, yes, I'll watch it. And luckily, doing the watch along yesterday basically paid for the pay-per-view cost that I spent on Triller TV to watch the fight. So, you know, no harm, no foul. I'll go back and I'll watch it. I'll enjoy it for what it is. But I already knew foregone conclusion. So I think I only got one of my, it may have been two. I haven't checked the Carlos Adames fight yet, but I got one prediction right in totality. And then I got like half a prediction right in the other one, because it was the Ben Whittaker one. I expected him to get the KO, but he went distance. All the others were, they were duds. But you know what? I'm happy that I didn't get them all right, because then that means that the fights weren't predictable. And I guess in boxing, that's the only thing we can really hope for. But yeah, look, I'm going to leave it there. I haven't really got much else to say on that. I'm going to upload the Francesca Hennessy interview I done a little bit later on today. Again, really good chat, really nice girl. I sort of had a couple reservations before. I watched the energy in other interviews. I thought, yeah, she's enigmatic. She's a bubbly character. But it's only when you actually like really speak to her yourself and you kind of you understand why she's a likable person like that. So she's got a new supporter in this side. I want to see her do well. I don't know where the ceiling is, but I'll enjoy the journey while it's going on. So yeah, I'm gonna upload that in a little bit. But thank you guys for watching. And yeah, also thank you to everyone who's obviously bared with me this week. There has been a lot of good news and stuff that happened earlier in the week that I just wasn't able to cover. I didn't have the time. Yeah, obviously you guys know why. But yeah, I'll try and get back to it a little bit this week. There's the Tyler Denny Felix cash fight in Birmingham, so I will be at that card. I'll hopefully be at the press conference on Thursday, so I'll try and get more content there. We'll try and do some other stuff for the channel throughout the week as well. I will be doing the breakdown on Tuesday, Undefeated Podcast channel, and Tuesday would have been my dad's birthday. So for you guys, like, please jump in. I want to make it a nice sort of a big spectacle, big special thing for him. So yeah, please make sure that you guys join, support that one. Obviously support the Undefeated Podcast as well. And to everyone else watching this who obviously are fathers, have their fathers, whatever, happy Father's Day to you guys. All of you that are doing an amazing job with your children, keep doing that. It's needed, it's important. Trust me, the next generation needs guidance now more than ever. I don't want to get too preachy, but understand it's needed. But with that being said, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Thank you very much for watching. But I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.